I think I may have just discovered a hack to improve the sound of records for only a few dollars. Let's get into it. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I love a good deal. I love to disprove audiophile BS, and I love to find cheap alternatives. It's not necessarily that I think that all audiophile beliefs are wrong. I often find that there's like a $50 solution, not always a $5,000 solution. You know, it's like oftentimes there's some science built into it, but oftentimes there's much cheaper options, much cheaper alternatives, and that's what we're here today to discover is there a great alternative? And I mean, for me, the thing that I think my BS meter went off the most when I first discovered was turntable isolation platters. I remember seeing the first one. It was someone's turntable just on a big, heavy chunk of wood, and I was curious about it. I looked into it and found out that that block of wood was like $500, and it's just wood. I know that lumber's expensive. I know the paper's expensive, which obviously comes from lumber. I've been in the market for a new cutting board. A wooden cutting board even is really expensive. A good thick one. So I mean, it does make sense that they're expensive, but for like the audiophile tax, at the end of the day, it's just wood. Like, I can't see that there's that much engineering or development into a literal piece of wood. And I mean, that's literally what a turntable isolation platter is. It's a big, heavy chunk of wood with some type of feed on it that dampen the sound. You put your turntable on it, reduces vibrations. So if your house has a lot of vibrations that happen, if people move around, that gets picked up by your needle. If the speakers, they produce a lot of vibrations, maybe they're not isolated from the rest of your system. This is one of those kind of barriers that you put in place to absorb more vibrations. I do notice that a lot of people who have pretty serious systems do not have these though. Oftentimes it's very dependent on what your room's like, what your components are like, so I understand that it's not necessarily a need to have piece for most people, but the people who do have it, I seem to think really do believe that this improves the sound of their overall hi-fi and their record. Truth be told, I've never really seen the need for one of these, particularly in my current apartment, which is very solid. My old place, there was a lot of vibrations, things shook around a lot. I used to play a lot of Ring Fit for Nintendo Switch, and there was games where you, in order for like fitness, you'd run in place, and my old apartment, things would shake on the walls, pictures would start to chitter, glasses would start to move towards the edge like they're gonna fall off. So in a new place, I can jump up and down, and you know, things largely stay in place, and I mean, like, that's really helped the sound of my records overall being in this new apartment. So it's not necessarily something that I think is like this huge need, but anyway, I'm always down to see if there's anything that I can do for a few bucks to see if it improves the sound of my records. And for over the years, I've seen videos of people making their own isolation platters using the different cutting boards from like IKEA. They're like, I think like 20 bucks, and they'd put like feet on them. Either they'd do screw-in feet, or they get stuff that they glued on, or just put it on like, I don't know, rubber feet, hockey pucks, that kind of thing. This seems to work for a lot of people. People have really said good things about these over the years. But something that I found out was that Dollarama, the dollar stores in Canada that are like everywhere. I mean, everyone talks about like Tim Hortons being like the national Canadian symbol. Like there's Tim Hortons on every corner. There are Dollaramas on every corner. There are 3 within like a 5-minute walk of my office. And I found out that they have these really cheap cutting boards. They're not super big, but they're like $4.75. And I actually measured and found out that I have a Rega Planner turntable, which has 3 feet. So actually, the 3 feet are able to fit on this cutting board. I mean, I think this is important before you go out to a dollar store and think that you're gonna do the same experiment that I did. But yeah, it fits on mine. If it doesn't fit on yours, I think that you could perhaps do the same thing that I've done, but maybe you could double it up where you could get 1 platter for each set of 2 feet on your turntable. I don't know, just make sure you measure them before you make any commitments. I know that the IKEA cutting boards are a lot larger, so that might be a safer option. But hey, I wanted to do something that was even cheaper. $4.75 versus 20 bucks, come on. That wasn't enough though. I didn't want to just get a cutting board. I thought it made sense to get some different materials to maybe try to dampen the sound as well. I bought a few different things, but what I ended up really gravitating towards and found that once I started putting it together, what I found really worked were these rubber stoppers. They're like the things that you put on like the on your, like your kitchen cabinets so that they don't like slam into your cupboard, like those things. They're made of rubber, they're adhesive, so you don't need to like drill them in or anything. I thought they would work pretty well. I also bought a few different things like those covers that you put on like the feet of like your chairs. I ended up not using these, but I ended up getting 2 cutting boards and 1 pack of the rubber feet. The cutting boards were $4.75 each. The pack of 24 of the stoppers was $1.25. So all in, I'm at $11.75 for my 2-level turntable isolation platter. The way I constructed it was that I basically took half of the stoppers, I put them around the outside of each of the boards. Once you start to kind of put your turntable on this, something that I would advise is possibly putting more towards the center, just so that if your turntable is quite heavy and it causes some sagging, just to make sure that this does stay level. The biggest thing is once you put it together, you want to make sure your turntable is level. I was assuming I was going to have to make a bunch of adjustments, maybe add some extra feet. I was shocked to find that my turntable was perfectly level when I measured it. So, hey, you might not be as lucky as me though, so just make sure to look out for this so your turntable's not completely leaning over to one side when you go to play record and are like, what the heck, why does this sound so bad? I thought this isolation platter was supposed to sound good, but it doesn't. So that's about it though. I made 2 of these. They took me like 2 minutes to make in total. Took some time for the sticky to kind of adhere to the cutting board, but that's it. I stuck 2 of them together and I put my turntable on top of it. And that's it. That was my Dollarama turntable platter for $11.75. But you're probably asking, did it actually work? Did it do anything different? Well, truth is, I didn't want to just make this as something like, here's a guide of how to make a turntable isolation platter, and then it ended up being terrible. So I actually made this about a month ago, and I've been living with it ever since. The biggest thing I can share, it did not make my record sound worse. Did it make it like markedly better? I like to think that it made like a slight improvement, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is a must do. This is going to improve the sound of your records dramatically. I did do a couple of very non-scientific tests, however. One was that I put the turntable, I did this with both the turntable on and not on the isolation platter. And what I did was I turned my receiver way down. I sat on the couch in kind of like my sweet spot with my eyes closed, and I turned up the volume. And it turned out that the rate that once I started to hear a lot of like static and a lot of fuzz, once it was noticeable, it was a little bit less with the isolation platter. So there is like, in my opinion, my non-scientific opinion, there was a slight improvement on that side of things. Also, I did stupid things like jumping up and down in front of the turntable to see if that would make a difference. I don't know. It didn't really make much of a difference. And it's like, I do like that it seems to have made a bit of a difference. And I mean, like, all my components are isolated. My speakers are on speaker stands. I generally don't struggle with vibrations to begin with, but if you have a place where you're often noticing that your records sound really bad because of movement that's happening around you, or because you're listening to music really loud and your needles may be picking it up, I'd say try this. And I mean, like, the worst case scenario is you're out like $11, and maybe this will make you curious. Maybe you'll want to get like legit feet versus the rubber stoppers I paid, $1.25 for. You can get some real rubber feet, or you can get like, there's like metal, like spikes that you can get on Amazon for like $20 that are great, that would probably do really well on this, that are, defeats the whole, like, can I make my record sound better with just a couple things from the dollar store? But I really do think that this is something that there is significant opportunity to save a lot of money. Like, I mean, maybe this isn't the best quality wood, but you stack up a couple, put a few things on it to dampen the sound. I think this functions the same way that any turntable isolation platter that would be a lot more expensive really would. And I mean, I think people have found that out, and that's why the IKEA boards for turntable isolation platters has been so popular. But hey, anything to save money, I'm in favor of, and love to hear if you've tried this or are curious about it yourself. Love to hear how you did with it. Also love to hear if you have any suggestions for how to make this better using just things that I can get for a few bucks or might even have laying around the house. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.